everyone, Ashley Bunkelman here on Peeling Back the Truth with my co-host Katie Cutler. Hi,
Hi,
Katie.
everybody.
It is episode 16, and we had such an amazing topic last time on how to build a med spa part one. We are doing part two. So we also apologize to all of our viewers that watch us. We are in the midst of our travels in today's busy world. So we are not on camera today, but our next podcast, I'm sure we'll be back on camera. So are you ready to
Yes,
start, Katie?
I am. I am sitting currently in an airport in Canada. I honestly am not even
Wonderful.
sure what the name of this airport is, but
I always forget what airport I'm in, so I can
if
relate
you,
to that.
yeah, if you hear some background noise, that's what's happening.
Perfect.
So,
Well, I hope you have
it's
a
funny though
safe
that we're
travel day.
having this topic because I just left a practice in Canada, Ontario. Dr. Shapiro, he's a dermatologist here in Canada, and I met a woman there who what she does is she works with med spas to find their own place, right? And I think that that is something that we didn't really touch upon last time, but it kind of struck a chord for me for today's episode. Every single med spa and the way that they are going to function and run, do pricing, um, what treatments they're going to offer, it's always going to be slightly different because you have to find your own place.
So I think that goes back to, what your and I'm forgetting the word of it. I apologize, but I think that goes back to like a mission statement. What's your mission
100%.
statement with your med spa? And I think people build a lot from there. But also, I think it's extremely important when people are in the midst of building a mission statement for a new med spa or rebranding a current med spa, they have to always remember, what their core beliefs are. Like whether it's two individuals sitting down or four individuals sitting down or one owner or whoever it is, I think it's important to have some input with people that are kind of leads and in management so they have core values and inputs on what their what holds the integrity of their
Specialties and
company. Yeah, and the
yes.
integrity of their company. I think that's
And
really
like, what is
important.
the objective for you? Sometimes you'll have a med spa that is really about well-being and mental health and just the overall. And then some are, more focused on the actual treatments and the skin integrity and everybody has their own. I know some med spas that offer other services like Reiki or IV infusion. So it's just there's so many ways and what direction that you can take your individual med spa, like to that it's really, you have to find that because without that goal, without that, objective, how are you going to really make it your own?
And I think that goes back to authenticity of your brand,
Yes.
right? It goes back
Hmm.
to the authenticity of your brand. As you said, there is so many, and you and I, Katie, travel all over. We see med spas, we see dermatology clinics, we see plastic surgeon clinics. We see the way that they brand themselves and how they align themselves. And there could be so many different things. I've been into current med spas and even derm's office recently that have like a boutique kind of like within their med spa where they
Hmm.
carry boutique things and I think that, to each their own on how they want to brand and do that, but being their brand, I think when companies get started, let's just say, like when companies get started and they grow at astronomical speeds and very, very quickly, and sometimes companies get lost in translation of what their branding is, what their mission statement is. And I think that when you do that, you lose touch and focus on what you started with and why. You lost your why.
You lost your why and you're trying to keep up with everybody and do, oh, well, this what you're focusing on one thing and then you see another med spa maybe is doing something else and you're like, oh, well, we have to do that. And then you're halfway in on one thing and halfway in on another, but you're not really perfecting anything. You're not really making anything your own or what you're really good at. And
And
I think that's a problem.
and I think it's interesting that you brought that subject up because also you and I know laser physics, we eat, breathe, and sleep it all the time. And I think that I'm gonna go on a limb here and say, 90% of a lot of the new, latest and greatest laser marketing world is same technology being repetitive. And I think that a lot of medical spa owners like to jump at like what's new and flashy and glamorous and not realizing what they already have could probably do about the same thing. And it's
Yep.
all in the way that they market themselves,
Yeah.
and it's all in the
And
way they brand themselves.
how they brand themselves, right? And don't feel like you have to be like everyone else. Be your own self and your own individual self. And that's, I was just having this conversation with this woman, and I said, "So, what are you like? Basically, a consultant?" And she said, "No, I'm actually not a consultant. I don't like to think of it like that. I like to think of it like I'm a coach. I'm coaching them."
I like that.
And
I like that.
I like it a lot. Okay. And I, when she said that, I was like, that's great, because it really isn't just consulting. I think like is a, you know, business. You know what I mean? Yes. But you need to be coached on to what do you want? What is it that's going to work for you? What's going to flow in your spot? And
Absolutely.
she works with them to find that place that it works for them, and then go from there,
And builds.
and build on that. So I think that's a really big part of it. Don't try to be someone else just because they're successful. Be successful in your own right and with your own brand and your own niche.
I think that it's a really creative way for her to say she's more of like a coach in aesthetics, rather than a consultant. Because I mean, to everybody out there, Katie and I have talked about doing consulting work forever and ever. And the thing is, it's getting oversaturated in the market. It truly is. And people
Yeah.
should more so turn to having people do a coaching style technique. And I think that that's great because you could still keep in touch with that med spa or that, aesthetic practice or the derm office or the plastics office, whatever you're doing, you could still keep in touch with them and do a check in and just say, are you still doing your why? And I think that I think as a current business owner, a soon to be business owner, a person just starting up, what we're trying to, get to here, Katie, and what we're trying to talk about is stick with your why, be your own brand, be you, and I think that that's really important in today's society, especially with so much influencing on social media outlets. Be you. Don't do what everybody else is. You don't have to stand up there and do every little dance that every other owner of aesthetic practices do. Do something with some authenticity and be true to you.
Yeah, and we always get caught up in credentials. I feel like, oh, people, and I know, Ashley, this happens all the time, and it's like,
Uh-huh.
well, I'm going to a doctor to get my Botox, or I'm going to a doctor to get my laser treatment. I'm not going to go to an esthetician or a laser technician or a nurse. Um, let's not just get caught up in credentials. Let's really find out what is the experience. Where has this person been? Where have they learned? What do they know? Because credentials in this industry that are just, degrees, they're great. I mean, listen, everybody, schooling is wonderful, education is wonderful, but experience in this industry is really what and how the practitioner becomes so good at this job, so good at
A
treating
hundred, per-
patients.
100%. And it kind of goes back to, when you have a good bond with your patients, like when I have a good bond with my patients in clinic, and they talk to me about like if they're at that point for plastic surgery, do you have a plastic surgeon you recommend? And I always say to them, like, what are you looking for to do? And we know some in the area, and I tell them things that people I'd recommend, but I always say to people, it doesn't make sense if you're getting a breast augmentation to go to somebody that is very elite and award winning in rhinoplasty. That doesn't make sense.
Exactly. Just
But
because that was your past, what you did before, that's what they did before, doesn't mean they're going to be good at what they're doing now. Just because they
Right.
were a superior in rhinoplasty does not mean that they are going to be amazing at lip injections or chemical peels or laser treatments.
Right. And I also, so with that being said, I think that it's great that a lot of doctors dive right into doing injections. I think that's phenomenal. But I think that especially with injectors, when you do injections, to do it very, very well, you need to do it daily. You need to do it weekly. You can't just pick it up and do it, every month or once a month or bi-monthly. The same thing with aesthetics. I personally, if I waited, a month or two to do chemical peels and lasers, I don't even know what my life would be like anymore because that's just not me. But could you imagine if we didn't do lasers on a daily, Katie, and we
No,
didn't have that? I would just feel almost like I was kind of lying to the patient that I was treating and saying like, "Oh, I do this all the time." And that's the thing, kind of bringing it back to how to build a med spa, build a portfolio, build.
build authentic, be authentic, and also the proof is in the pudding. Okay, so
Yes,
isn't that like an old saying, I
an
guess?
old
But the
wives'
proof
tale.
is in the an
Is
old
it an old
wives, wives, whatever they are. It is. The proof is in the pudding. The proof is in your results. So I always tell when I'm teaching students, you can get a Groupon. Put a Groupon out there for everybody. Hopefully, if you know what Groupon is, or put out a coupon, an advertisement, whatever, and it might pull people in your door. Yes. But now it is your job to keep them there, because one time, one patient is not how you will become successful. Just getting them in the door
longevity.
for that one, you want to build longevity, and the proof is in the pudding. Give them results, show them your credibility. Don't tell them how credible you are, show them. Get trust from your patient, talk to them, understand what their wants and needs are, and you give them their wants and needs, because that's what they're looking for. It's not about what you want, it's about what do they want, and are you able to facilitate that for them? And do you care enough to do that, or are you so worried about what you want or what you think they need? I always say the first question I ever ask a patient when I'm treating them is, what bothers you the most? Why are you here? Like,
Absolutely.
what
I always say
brought you
top
here?
3 skincare concerns. Exactly. And
So if they tell me under eye, darkness, right? I'm not going to say, well, guess what? I think your marionette lines really need help, so we're going to work on that.
you'll
That's
get there, you'll get there sooner than later when you have their trust. And I think with you saying that, we always kind of get caught up in making, talking about things that are more complicated in the industry because you and I get so excited and we go on like our rants and people are probably like, what are they talking about? But to kind of bring it back down to the basic level, Katie, that's where you seek out a plan of action, a protocol, and maybe
hmm
you put them on a 3-month protocol. Let's see where we're at after that. Maybe it's a 6-month protocol. Let's see where we're after that. I have had countless patients come in to Skin Boss Med Spa on a weekly basis say, "Well, I go to such and such place and Sarah's been doing my skin for 2 years and she's done this, this, and this. Well, what is she doing that for? Well, I don't know. She
I
just
don't
says that
know.
I need it.
I have
I
no
just need
idea.
it.
hmm
So then you say to them, well, why do they think you need it? Like, what are they utilizing? What are they doing to you? And they say, well, I don't know. I just trust them. But, but
But
as a,
why do
as a,
you trust them if you didn't even, educate yourself on them, and who are they? Well, what makes you? It's so crazy. I was driving a friend of mine home from dinner last week, and a friend of hers called her FaceTime, and she was like, I'm in the car with Katie. We just had dinner, whatever. And she goes, oh my gosh, could you ask Katie something? Because she knows what I do. I'm in this industry. She's like,
uh-huh.
can you tell her I just went to blah, 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 and I had this done. And this is what they had me do. Well, this woman she's Asian. So she's a skin type 5. And
Yep.
what was done to her, I was appalled. I just was so I couldn't even believe it. Now,
Every day in
I
the
said
industry.
And I said to her, like, so the woman in the car with me is one of my best friends, and this is a very close friend of hers, but not a mutual friend. So I know her through her, but she was. I said, "Why didn't you ask my friend to ask me? I would have been happy to, steer you in the right direction or give you some. Oh, I didn't want to bother you. I know you're so busy. Well, guess what? Bother me, because look what's going on now. You're in a bad spot. You have possibly permanent damage.
Oh
And
gosh.
it would have been a simple text message between you and I where I could have steered you in the right direction. So
And
just because someone has a wonderful Instagram page and everything looks fancy on their Instagram page does not mean that they are good at their job.
they might just be good at the social media aspect of their job,
Now, don't let
which I
me let
lack
me
in,
don't
but
get me wrong. There are people on social media who are talented and
amazing.
are
Yes.
amazing, but there are people who aren't. So it's your job to differentiate, between that. Who is and who isn't. And like we're kind of off topic of creating a med spa, but this is all part of it because this is your consumer. You want your consumer to educate themselves. So that's your job to get that out there. What are your credentials? What makes you better than the esthetician 3 blocks down the road? What makes you better than the injector 3 blocks
And
down the road?
what do you specialize in? That's another
Yeah.
thing. What do you specialize in 3 different things? Do you specialize in 16 different things? Are you the master of all trades? That's the thing. You and that's where, within the med spa I work within, we have different divisions because we feel strongly that you can't be an expert in every single thing but master at none. You
No,
can't.
yep. You absolutely cannot. You can't look. I am better at lasers is my niche, that
Mhm.
is where
Mhm.
I definitely feel like I thrive. And I just like, I get it. And I get how they work with the skin and I know how to use them properly. And I know what works, what doesn't work. And I don't feel doubtful of myself. I'm
Mhm.
confident in my decisions. Um, Now, that being said, when I am working with product, sometimes I will refer to somebody, Ashley, at certain times because I know product very well, probably, better than the average person.
99% of people, yes,
Yeah,
I will agree
but
with that.
there are sometimes things come up and I want to run it by you because I want to make sure that I am, making the right decision with a product. Now, when it comes to lasers, that I never feel like that.
Right.
I never feel like I have to seek additional, you know, opinions because I really, really just am very comfortable in that area. So everybody has a spot where that they're comfortable. Find your spot.
And I think with you saying that on how to build a med spa, be whether it's a business owner listening to this or an employee listening to this, build your team of experts, I feel, where you have no doubt in your mind that they are fully capable of doing that job with expertise because there are a lot of business owners. And Katie, you and I see it on the daily when we're training and traveling, where they're just uncertain or unsettled with certain employees that they have just because they might not be so certain of themselves. So that makes them wonder or think. Always go with your gut. Build a team
Yeah,
of experts that you know can get the job done and always be professional in an expert way of doing things. You have to make sure that you're building a team of experts all together because if you only have, one really strong person and the other one's mediocre, you're as strong as your weakest link. Therefore, building your med spa is going to have some turmoil shortly down the road or maybe longer down the road and it will hit like a ton of bricks because you you realize that your weakest link needed a lot more, hand holding than anybody thought, and it weighs the team down.
it
Not
weighs
to
the team
say
down.
not to say when you're in a med spa industry, I ask my peers all the time within our office, you know, seven heads are better than one, right? Like there's more. Here we go with those things again. More than one way to skin a cat, Katie. Like when you ask me questions about products, it's not because you don't know the answer. It's because you want to hear my answer, so then we can have a educated discussion about it. It's more or less like let's educate ourselves further. And I think in the industry we don't do that enough. We don't have business owners come together enough and med spas and aesthetic
No, and
practices.
compare and contrast their emotions and feelings and what's going on, and
And
it
that's what
makes
makes
some.
this
We
industry go
always look
round.
at each other as competitors, but it's
It
not
should
really.
never be the case.
No, I can
I
grow and learn from other. That's why these, you know, going to different shows and learning and always learning and getting better and bringing it into your practice, but not the same way someone else brought it into their practice, maybe in a different way, your way. What is going to fit in your space?
and I know that this isn't, I mean, this is all about building a med spa, obviously, still. You and I go off on little things, but I think for just a second, talking about this and how people look at one another as competitors rather than sharing information with each other to help build each other up. This industry, and you and I have both seen it at so many different shows and so many different functions, Katie. If people would just stop and recognize majority of people are where we are when we're in that moment at these shows for the same reasons, to learn rather than the cattiness. And you see it all the time, and so do I, Katie. Be sure of yourself and let go of being competitive with the person down the
Yes.
street, because if you don't,
It
it will
will tear you
manifest
down. It will
it will
manifest through your
manifest
whole
such a
practice.
monster. Exactly, and you will
And
become that,
you
and you'll
want your
lose touch.
job should be something. It should be with something that you truly enjoy, that you truly love to do. Like, I know you. I know that you love to go into your clinic and do the work you do with your clients. I know it's passionate for you. I know it makes you, fired up and happy. It's obvious. I know for myself, my job with
Your
Aerolase, for me,
education
it
is
is
huge.
not just a job. I am seriously passionate about this company, these devices. It means it means something to me emotionally. So that emotional connection to your business connection or your livelihood is huge, because if you
But
don't have that, it doesn't come through.
if we were worried about the competitors next door in the clinic I work at, or you were worried about your competitors on an education level with different companies that you work for, you would lose touch of that. And this is why I'm really strongly saying this to everybody listening to us today. If you are competing with your competitors, you're only going to bring yourself down. You need to stay true to yourself, because therefore, what you feel and the passion that you have driving you in this aesthetic industry, you will lose because you will get so wrapped up into your own head about the competition aspect that you will lose it.
Yeah,
Take,
and why do you want to be like somebody else? Why
I,
do you
you
so
know,
so if
it's
you
interesting.
see someone's, let's say, I was going to say Facebook, but I know that's not someone's Instagram. Okay, whatever.
We're dating
But anyway,
ourselves here.
I know if you see someone's Instagram page, right, and they're really popular or whatever, and everyone, they have a lot of followers. So you say to yourself, well, I'm going to make my page look just, the same. I'm going to do what they do, act like they act. Well, why is that going to be attractive? Because that is theirs. That is what made them get all those followers. That is what made them popular. It doesn't mean it's going to make you popular or make you someone that other people desire. You have to find what is it about you that people will desire, and you have to dig deep and figure out what is it.
I I completely agree, and I just think that I don't even have, we don't have all the answers, Katie. We're just trying out here in this crazy world. But I think that if people really are true to themselves and stick with the passion that fuels their fire in the aesthetics, rather than worrying about what the person's doing down the road or in the city over from them, it's going to make life a lot less complicated, and you can focus on the practice and the team.
Yeah.
a team builder and focus on the
And
team.
just imagine if you enjoy what you're doing every day when you go into work. Just imagine if your team enjoys
And the
what they're doing
fulfillment.
every day, what they when they go to work, and the fulfillment. Then what that whole the entire aura of your medical spa is going to be different. You know when you walk into a place and there is a bad vibe happening. You
Oh, we
can
see it
feel it.
every day. We see it all the time. Yeah, you feel it.
You can feel it. And I don't want to be there. I want to be somewhere that lifts me up, makes me happy, makes me feel good, that these people become part of my life. And, and that all comes from being authentic and care and really, really putting your focus on your patient, and making, and what they love about it is what you made it, not because you
Absolutely.
made it like somebody else, you
That
know?
authenticity.
They could
Absolutely.
just go there if you're gonna recreate someone else's brand, you might as well they might as well just go there because 'cause you're just the
Absolutely.
second best. Be your own
Absolutely.
place.
And I think too, to kind of recap when we talked about our part one of building a med spa is start with the basics, start simple, and to kind of go based from there. Katie, um, I in and I don't and I try to be very non-offensive when we talk on our podcast. We're not trying to be offensive to anybody. And some people that have done this have probably had great success. But I also think, at the end of our podcast last time, we were talking about leave it to the experts within the skin care realm and the chemists that are doing these formulations with skincare products. I
Mhm.
truly think, this subject came up again since we've had our last podcast about private labeling. I think that's a great thing to do. I don't think right out the gates I would do it though. I think I
No.
would build a brand up, and we kind of talked about that last time, but it's funny, I'm circling back to that because this question just came up to me in a training last week again. And I just said,
A
I
lot of
don't
people
see.
do that. They just go right into this private labeling. Well, why don't you there's so many amazing medical grade skincare lines out there that you can get started with and learn about. It takes time to learn a line. Like I know that it takes
Yeah.
a while to learn a line. First of all, you have to feel, touch, and use these products yourself.
For longer than 28 days. You have to do at
Yes.
least 28 days. You
Yeah,
gotta
and
get a
you
good
have to
cycling that way.
use them on your patients and see the results you're getting. This is how you know things are worthy and they're going to be a fit for your practice. Not
Mhm.
because someone says they're good. Because I have been told products are good and use them and that was not the case for me. But they may have been okay for, good for someone else. Everybody's skin is different. Some products work well for some people that don't work well for other people. You know, it's a very very in-depth area, the whole skincare
Mhm.
portion of your med spa, but it is a crucial part of your med spa because it has to happen because your clients have to have it to be part of this whole interaction with you. Cannot send people home without skincare.
It's and that's the thing. I always say the 80-20 rule, and I know you do too, Katie. 80% of your skincare is at home, 20% is in clinic with us. And
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 people
it's
don't
true,
want to hear it sometimes. They don't like I
but they
saw
have
a
to.
little like a reel, I guess it was, and it was this girl and she went to a med spa and she got it was like, oh, this many $1,000 this treatment, this thousand this treatment, this thousand this treatment. And then she goes to the front to pay. No problem paying for those $1,000 treatments. And then the girl says, and here's your sunscreen and your product, 160. And she's like, what? She's
But the
blown away. But
but you
meanwhile, she
have
just
to
paid
get good,
thousands of dollars for all these other treatments, but doesn't want to spend $160 for the decent skincare to
which is funny
protect
because
what you did.
which which is funny that you say that, Katie, because I physically in clinic told a patient that was going to do a neo by Airlays, of course, with a peel. I have physically not had them do the peel because they were on a budget and said, I would much rather you invest the money not in the peel today, just do the Neo. And let's not invest the money in the peel so I can have you go home with your exfoliator and with your sunscreen because
That
she
makes
wasn't going
so
to
much
get those.
sense.
She wasn't going to get those but she was gonna do the Neo and Peel together, and I said, "No, that doesn't make any sense. Do the Neo
No
on its
sense.
own. I'm gonna send you home with the sunscreen and the exfoliation, because if you don't have those at home, you can't protect what we're just doing here, and you just spent, 3, 4, $500. It
Right.
doesn't make
And
sense.
it makes no sense. And what you send her home with, may not be as effective as the peel, but over time will be more important than one peel as opposed to a long-term skincare regimen.
And I'm just gonna say this, and it's kind of bold, but I'm just gonna say it to a business owner, a consultant in skin, or to the consumer, to the patient right now, whoever's listening. If whoever's in charge of your skin doesn't ask you every time you go in there what you're using on your skin, or ask a question about the products that you had wrote down for them prior, or with your trip coming up, do you have a good SPF? If they're not inclined to ask you about your skincare, I'm sorry, Katie, that doesn't make them a great expert, because they
No.
need to be helping you when they are not with you at their home. Because if they're not helping you take care of your skin when they're not in clinic, they're not educating you on how important it is. It's not even a question to me to ever talk to every single patient I have. It doesn't matter if I'm really tight on time. Even if I say, how's your exfoliation going? How's your sunscreen going? Are you using your lightener and brightener because the sun is going to be really, hot down in Jamaica when you go there in a couple weeks or whatever. Things like that. If you're not asking things like that to patients, I'm sorry, I don't think that that makes you a good skincare expert at all. And if you're a practice that isn't doing any skincare, I highly recommend doing skincare, because I have went to practices that don't mess with skincare. I highly recommend, even if it's one brand, get skincare,
You
get something
I
in
don't
there for
even highly
sunscreen.
recommend. I say it's
It's a
craziness.
must. It's a must,
You
because
know,
we have seen places like that before.
Oh, absolutely. And I always say, so when I do a lot of for Aralace, we have like a 30-day check-in with accounts after they purchase the laser, and we talk a lot about, how are they doing? And if, they're struggling in a certain area, and I find that it always comes back to, it never comes back to the laser or the treatment. It comes back to what the patient is doing at home or what they're not doing at home.
When there's an adverse reaction, or they're not seeing results, or
Or they're not
yeah,
coming
oh yeah.
back on time for their protocol. How about that? So, someone may say, my laser hair is not working. Okay. Well, let's look in your chart. And I see here that you came in September, you came in November, March, and it's June. You have 4 treatments, yes, but your
Not in the
laser
correct
hair is
spacing,
never
not in the
going to
right
work like
intervals.
that. Right.
Never.
So you have to explain the importance of the protocol, or else you won't get good results. You won't, because it's just not, it's never going to happen. You have to teach your patient. I think this is I used to do this. I write up your protocol, you initial it, so that
Make them accountable.
when you cancel your appointment and I don't see you or you don't come back, whatever, and you say this isn't working, I say, well, let's whip out your protocol, and it said you needed to be here every 4 weeks. And I have here that you were here about every 8 weeks. So, therefore, of course, it's not working because we didn't follow the protocol.
And that's when we need to make patients accountable. And
We
I
have
think
to,
that that
we can't
and
keep on
that is a
track of
good
every
thing,
patient ourselves.
and that's a good thing to tell people that are, starting, going back to the basics with med spas or their aesthetic practice. You need to
Yep.
make people accountable.
Yep.
I in every
Expectations, explaining, everything. It's just all of it is what makes you good. And I'm
and
telling you, Ashley, from my experience of hearing people talk about their experience in a med spa, the practitioners out there, estheticians, laser, not everyone, I'm just saying a lot, are not educating their patient. They're not even telling them what they're doing to them and why.
which that's like a foreign language to you and I, because I mean, everybody that listens to our podcast, I'm sorry, all of you, you probably hear us say education, education, education. That's what Katie and I are here to do, is keep saying the word education to everybody. But it's doing them such a disservice, and that is why I feel this industry sometimes gets a little bit murky because you hear all these horror stories about things of that, but we don't hear all the amazing great stories
No,
because
we don't,
sometimes those
because
out
there's so many of the war stories out there, there's so
yeah,
many, and they over, shine all
overtreated
these
and oh,
amazing things that are happening, all these beautiful results that we're getting out there. Because anytime there is something that is not happening that is effective, it is always something is lacking in the communication, the education portion, the reliability of the client, the it's something. It's never about the actual treatment. It's about the participation of events between the practitioner and the client.
and it's because they're not prepared enough.
Yep.
I think that that is huge too when you're building your med spa. You have to have all your ducks in a row where you have your pre and your post care and what to expect, thoroughly explaining. I mean, I know in our practice, we call patients after their first treatment is done of like the say they do their first neo or their first era or their first peel or whatever they're doing. We call them, anywhere from 48 hours to 5 days later. Hey, how are you? Want to make sure that you know that one call, I've had so many patients come back to us and say, "Oh my gosh, I'm so glad that you checked up on us, like, thank you for not necessarily hand holding, it's our callbacks because we wanna make sure. Now, if they've done it more than once, we don't necessarily call them because they know
No,
what to
because it
expect, they
but
call us.
and you know what? I guarantee you that when you call, they 100% have a question, but they didn't wanna call. I said that to the girl I was just talking about. "Well, did you call them?" "No." Why? Why? You just spent over $1,000 and you're having an issue
And they
and you're
need to know.
complaining, you're so upset, but you didn't call them. Why? Did they call you and check up on you? No. I mean, it's
It's
bizarre.
unfortunate.
Listen, if you want to open up a med spa, the opportunities are there. It is out there. It is a wanted, needed, you know, industry. It's endless. But if you're going to do it correctly. Don't you know what? We're probably about to wrap this up a little bit, but let's just like top five important. Let's try to maybe just narrow some things down
Narrow it
because
down.
we've been all over the place. And like, let's just think of like five things, not even top five, but five important things. If this is
M
what you are looking to go into, if this is what you're
mission,
trying to do,
mission statement,
a mission
auth
statement.
with authenticity
Yes. Who are
is
you
one,
and what do you want your
and why.
facility to be and why? I'm going to throw one
Get
out there that we haven't talked about,
Yep.
but quality employees.
Oh, music to my ears, Katie.
Oh, she said, I'm telling
That's the
you,
thing. If they're not ready, you're as strong as your weakest link.
yep,
Quality employees is
quality
key.
employees. And listen, treat your employees properly because don't, if you think you're going to underpay and undertreat and undervalue your employees, that's what you're going to get back. But if you let them shine with you, you will shine.
So I want to add to that, Katie, because I think this is really important. You say quality employees. If you have quality employees, there will not have to be any micromanaging
Nope.
because micromanaging will kill your business,
Absolutely. It is
especially in aesthetics.
100%.
Aesthetics micromanaging will kill your business. And that's why if you have
And you
quality
don't
employees, you
have
don't need
to.
to micromanage.
You
You
don't have
don't
to.
need to do it.
I have at Arrowlace, and I'm going to put a shout out right here to my training team. Ashley, you are one of
Woo
them.
woo.
I have a quality team of women and men who are trainers for Arrowlace. And I am so proud of who they are because every single one of them cares so much that I don't even have to tell them to care or ask them to care because they do, the passion is there, and that's why they're here because
Well, it's because they
you
have a good
know,
leader. Because you don't
well,
micromanage.
and because my passion, I feel like, comes through, and that's where that's why I was attracted to them. Like, I know when you and I met, it was like, oh, I felt like
It
we
was
were
love
friends
at first sight.
it was like we were like, we have to be together somehow.
And here we are, and look at us. So
Yes.
yeah, quality employees is so key, and thank you for that shout out. You know that I do feel strongly, and I know all the other trainers out there with me. I train facilities like I would train within my in the own facility that I work at on a weekly
I
basis,
We all,
and we
yes.
wanna make you proud. We wanna make you proud, so I appreciate
Well,
that, and
I'm beyond proud of. I mean, I talk about it all the time. How amazing, all of you are, and it's just, I mean, Aralace has, I'm going to put it out there, the best training team around.
aw, that's awesome. Thank you so much for saying that. We all have the best leader though, truly.
Mm.
And just to back this up for everybody, Katie and I, she likes to say we work together. She doesn't like to say she's my boss, even though she is my boss. But
Not really.
when we did our
Uh,
podcast together, when we first started this, Katie wasn't my boss. So that just goes to show to people that we have a lot of love and respect for each other. So thank you for
yes,
saying
we
those kind
do.
words.
Yes.
I let's go to number 3. Do you have number 3 or you want me to say number 3?
Yeah, you go ahead. You can shout three out.
Okay. Okay. My number 3 is have all your paperwork in place, whether you're working with medical records or paper records. You need to have your pre and post. You need to have consents. I don't know how strongly I need to say this. Consents are a must. Pre and post are a must because there are so many clinics out there that I have seen over the United States that don't even use consent forms.
Oh, Ashley,
Cover
don't even get me
your
going.
rear.
Every
You love
single
your
thing
job, love
you
your license to keep it, get consent.
write it down, put it on paper. Everything has to be written down for everything. You have to
Documentation.
keep a paper trail, maybe not a paper, a technology trail, whatever, wherever you put it. You need to know everything. Every time you see that patient, every single thing that happened at that visit should be noted, dated, picture taken, everything, consent signed, dot your I's, cross your T's over and over because this is going to make you better.
And
Because
I'm
when
just
you
gonna
get a phone call and someone says, "This happened to me," and you don't even know what you did because you never even wrote the settings down, this is not good.
so I'm gonna go right into number 4 because you just said it, but I'm gonna give it its own space. Before and amazing photos. You document with photos every single time someone comes in your door, lays on your bed, and you treat them. You document with photos because you can paper trail, like Katie and I just said, or do electronic medical records, like Katie and I just said. But if you don't have a photo, you can't prove that you didn't do something to somebody that got it elsewhere. And that's
Exactly.
when it's going to get crazy with licensing. And if you love your license and want to keep it, I suggest you do photos every
Right.
time somebody
Because when
comes in there.
someone says, "Oh, this happened to me," and then you say, "Well, I have your before picture," and that was there in your before picture.
It
So that
happens.
didn't happen.
I've been a expert witness panel before in litigations. I've had to go to trial with cases of people doing this, and it happens every day, all day within plastic surgeon's office, dermatology offices, any aesthetic practice. So as owners and people that are consultants and specializing in things, you need to make sure that you have your paper trail there, your consent forms, and your photos, quality of employees, obviously have a mission statement and your why with your authenticity, branding, your branding on it. And I'm going to let you close with number 5, Katie.
I have five right here. It just came to me. Do not go out and purchase every single thing you see that everyone has on Instagram. And
I think that was one of our cons, last one, and I think
it
it's a huge one to
probably
talk
should have,
about.
yeah, it is huge. It is so huge. Just because something, again, I don't know how many times I can say this. Just because something's popular does not mean it's good. It is a fact. It is in this industry all over the place. There,
Oversaturation.
it's so many things that are popular That doesn't mean they're good. Learn about them, know the science, understand what they do. Like we said, you could start a medical spa with an Aralace Neo.
And
Literally,
treat 40 conditions.
you can have an entire med spa with one laser. It is a possibility. A
Of
skincare
course,
line and some sunblock,
I was going to say,
sunscreen.
of
Yeah,
course, a skincare line.
yes. An Aralace Neo and a skincare line, and you literally can open your doors.
And then you will thrive. And then you build with your chemical peels, your facials,
Yes,
your
then you add your
injectors.
peel. You add a microneedle pen. You add an injector to your practice. You add this, but just get started. Make some money. Pay off your device. Then you know what. But really, one thing, and you can start. That's what the amazing part of that device. I mean, it's the only device that you could do that with.
Yep, it is on the market, 100%. And competitors talk to us all the time about this, Katie. And I'm not saying in our clinic we have other lasers, and those lasers complement our med spa extremely well. But my biggest laser that I use nonstop is Neo and Era, its sister. I mean, they're amazing.
Yeah, it's
But
my go. I always say once the Era and the Neo came into my life, I just
you
it's
didn't
my
need to think
go-to.
about anything else. Yep.
No, I really could solve any skin issue with having both of them. That's it. I can solve the world with the Aerolase Era and the well, the skin world anyway.
Well, hopefully we're kind of helping solve the skin world here while we do these
Yes.
podcasts. So I'm so glad we talked about part two of making a med spa
Yeah,
and amazing things in this industry. And in the next week or two, we are
we're
going to
gonna.
get back on here and talk about session 17. And we're
Oh,
not sure what that's going to be, but I'm
we'll have
sure
a
if you
good
stay
one.
tuned, it'll be a good one. So,
It will be a good
Katie, I
one.
know you have a flight to catch, and I have
I'm
to get
just
my
sitting
rear
here
out of
in the
here too.
airport.
So, well,
All right.
I
Love
hope you have
you.
safe travels. Love you. And thank you, world, for listening to Katie and I talk on Peeling Back the Truth, episode 16 of Building a Med Spa, part two. We will talk
Yes.
soon, everyone. Bye, Katie.
Bye.
Safe
Bye.
travels. Love ya.
Love you.